Welcome to Dynamics Corner. This is Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on October 27th, 2022. Kris. I'm beginning to enjoy these more and more each time we record.
I agree with you 100%, man. I'm loving where we're going. And in this episode, we're going to have a great time.
Yes.
Good friends of ours for a long time, and seeing them succeed, it's a great feeling. So
I'm extremely excited and happy for them and what they're doing. You know, we've known them for a long time and where they've came from. Who is it? I'll let you do the announcing this time.
Yes. Welcome. Let's welcome our friends here, Anthony and Brian from Cosmos. Welcome, Anthony, Brian. How are you guys doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having us on. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Us too.
It's a pleasure speaking with you. You know, I enjoyed seeing you down at Summit as well and getting the opportunity to speak with you. I've been looking forward to speaking with you about Cosmos and what you guys do and offer to the Business Central community and any other communities that you serve.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and I got to tell you too, you know, just so you know, this is kind of a big deal because we were invited on another podcast at Summit, but you guys beat them to it. So this is the debut podcast.
Yeah.
A big deal.
We'll make sure we
that is a big
right
deal.
away.
I feel we'll have to put this out there right away, and then get you on again before you do the other podcast. I'll send you over an agreement that states that you can't be on another podcast
ever
until you do another follow up with us.
That was not part of the deal, yes. But we will review the terms.
No, it's great. So, if you would, can you tell us a little bit about Cosmos? What do you do? The overview of the product, and a little bit about each of you and the history of the application as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's start with the background because sometimes that informs sort of what we're doing here. So, obviously, myself and Brian Petersen here, we both were former executives at another prominent reporting and analytics tool in the space that I'm sure we're all familiar with and have all seen over the years. And after leaving that company and spending a little bit of time on the partner side, we just continued to hear from our clients that we need a better solution for reporting. We need something cloud-based. We want something faster, more performant. And so, that idea just kept surfacing right in front of ourselves. And, finally we sat down, popped open a beer, and it was just one of those, looked at each other at the same time and said, we should probably do something about this. There's a lot of pain we can solve.
Do you know how many agreements and relationships are built over a drink? I think all of the networking occurs in a bar. It's what I noticed. You go to the conferences, you go to trade shows, you go to all these places. Sometimes it's sitting down and being relaxed. See, that's where it comes into play, I think, is where you can sit down, have a clear head, think, talk, loosen up a little bit. But that's interesting. Over a beer.
Yep.
Which beer was it?
I mean, normally Brian and I are on the IPAs. I don't remember exactly what beer it was, but I'm sure it was in that category. So, those are dangerous, slippery slope, as we know. But to your point, it's great for getting those ideas flowing, obviously. And so, we sat down, we had our beer, and it was just kind of like, we should do this. Like, let's take the risk. We're both in a position we can do it, and we think we have a really good idea of what the market wants. And so, what we were able to do is pull in an incredibly bright person, Zachary Faltersack, to help us on the development and engineering side. And we ended up releasing shortly thereafter Cosmos Data Technologies and our Cosmos solution for reporting, analytics, and data management, all in the cloud, built specifically for Business Central Cloud. And so that's been an absolutely fun ride. And Brian, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but that's kind of the high level overview.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only thing I'd add to that is, over the years, just seeing, selling, implementing a lot of the different solutions out there, as Anthony mentioned. I mean, we just knew that there was a better way to approach the what the customers were looking for, and being able to roll something out where we had control over what was built, why it was built, how it was built, and I mean, so far the response we've heard from the market has been fantastic, overwhelmingly fantastic. So that's been really good to see. So
no, it is. I appreciated the application and seeing what it can do and what you have. So Cosmos Data Solutions, it's a web-based reporting and analytics. I'm just trying to simplify or explain it differently, right? It's a web-based, or excuse me, a cloud-based reporting and analytics application that's designed for Business Central, the SaaS version of Business Central. Does it work with on-premise as well?
So yeah, that's a great point. So, being that we're, endorsed and in a program with Microsoft that, allows them to help kind of guide a little bit of this, the thing that everyone thought we should focus on was Business Central Cloud, right? Because I think we all know that's the direction things are going. But we are going to have backwards compatibility to on-prem BC probably in the next, I'd say 2 months, 2 to 3 months. So the very near future.
Very good.
Oh, that's great. So it can assist the on-premise implementation as well. Would it be limited to Business Central, or will you go back to previous versions of Nav
Brian,
with this on-prem
Brian,
solution?
I'll let you speak to that since you're in charge of the product there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so right now we know we've heard from the partners and the customers in the channel that there's clearly a demand for us to support the on-prem market. Part of that is gonna be TBD, right? So we're gonna go with the technology and see how far back can we support without introducing a lot of technical debt, or we can't build these other cool things in the future because we have to support some of these older things in the past. I mean, it should definitely be pretty much any flavor of BC on-prem, and then we'll see how far back we can get with Nav. We don't expect to support, Nav 2.7 or anything like that. Or 1.0, Brad. I listened to one of your previous podcasts.
Oh, listen, everybody always has to take the jabs at me, but yes. Well, I think if you went to what a lot of people do with the older versions and you went to 2009 SP2 executable, you could be, at a little level field, but no. If anybody's using that version, I think they should consider upgrading. So you have a cloud-based reporting and analytics tool. What is involved with the analytics? Do you have standard analytics packages that someone can use? Can they build them themselves, or is it something you assist with the implementation of?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the answer is both. So the beauty of this is, Brian has been implementing analytics solutions for, different clients of all shapes and sizes for how long now, Brian?
2012 is when I started. So yeah, 10 years.
A decade, right? And so during that time, and having worked specifically with Nav for even longer than that, Brian was able to identify those kind of core best practices around, which tables and fields and things do people typically report off of across those core subject areas. So with Cosmos out of the box, you've got, a reporting database that's all in the cloud that has subject matter oriented sections. So, a section for finance and inventory and AP and AR and purchasing, et cetera, et cetera. And so Brian and the development team have put together pre-packaged out of the box stuff so that people on day one can be spun up with a tenant in 15 to 20 minutes. Their data is flowing and they can start working on it. From there is a full, analytics backend, or what we call an ETL tool behind the scenes that's all in the cloud, all powered by Azure Data Factory, which is some cutting edge technology from Microsoft. Basically takes data, moves it around the cloud, organizes it, things like that. And so, either customer, their partner can do it, they can do it, we can help with it, but basically we can take data from custom tables and fields or anything else they want and marry it into that pre-built project that comes out of the box. So it's a nice way to give them a lot of immediate value, but also have the flexibility to customize and tailor the solution to each specific business. So that's kind of the long answer there.
So you mentioned that you have pre-built analytics packages, and I'm assuming reporting packages as well, which I look at it slightly different, that work with custom extensions that customers may have within the Business Central environment. Does it also work with data that may reside outside of Business Central that could commingle the data between something maybe like his Dataverse as well as Business Central, or is it specific to Business Central data only at this point?
Yeah, that's a good question. And Brian, honestly, I've been hogging the mic, so I'll let you jump in and speak to that a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's part of that.
We just had Brian muted, by the way. That's why he isn't talking. He was trying.
My mouth has been moving, but I
muted.
can't hear anything. To the point that Anthony mentioned a moment ago, that part of that initiative where we're going to be extending Cosmos to be able to pull in data from like on-prem Business Central data sources is part of that. That's one example. But since we're leveraging this tool called Azure Data Factory, the nice thing about that is Azure Data Factory already comes with something like 80 pre-built data sources that Microsoft has built and maintains. And so since we're using that to manage all of our back-end data pipelines and things like that, part of this initiative coming up soon is we're going to be adding additional data sources. So think, someone's got data in BC Cloud. They also use Dynamics 365 Sales. They also have an older on-prem SQL database. People have gobs of Excel files they always want to bring data in from for one reason or the other. And so being able to take information from a lot of different places, as you mentioned, Brad, and get it in one consolidated database for reporting that's the main facet of the analytics side of the product.
No, I think that would be great, because one thing that I've come across frequently is individual implementations or customers wanting to upgrade data or move forward or re-implement, and it's, what do I do with my old data? So this could be leveraged to assist somebody to re-implement their Business Central if they're moving from an earlier version, but still be able to report against the existing and old data.
Yep.
Yes, that's perfect. That's kind of where I was going with that question, along with outside of it. So it was a little targeted, but I see that frequently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you end up with someone who has 15 years worth of sales and financial data sitting somewhere. Might be expensive for them to move all of that as part of the upgrade to Business Central Cloud. So this still enables partners to move over opening balances, open sales orders, POs, etc., and then leverage a tool like Cosmos to connect to and bring in that 15 years of transaction history for reporting purposes without it having to live in Business Central Cloud itself.
No, I think that's a great feature to have with this. Now, with the reporting, when somebody's using the reporting, do they have a separate portal that they go through, or do you have it integrated within like a dashboard in Business Central as well?
Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony.
No, that's fine, Brian. You jump in.
No, I was going to say, as far as that's concerned, we actually have our own portal. Everything's cloud-based. And so we have our own portal where customers can go in. They'll see all of the reports that have been shared with them. And we also have a two-way Power BI integration that we released at Summit in Orlando just a few weeks back. So cool. So it's one portal where people see all of their financial and operational reports, all of their Power BI reports, all in one place, so they don't have to go out to a bunch of different websites to get access to all of their information.
You have a standard offering, as we had discussed, but there are those implementations, as we all know, where somebody would like to have a customization or a modification or enhancement. Is within this tool, can a user of the application design, develop, and modify their own reports or analytics, or is it something they would need someone to help them with?
Yeah,
or both?
The answer is with so many things in the consulting world, it depends, but it's really both. We have some customers and partners who just they get right up to speed with it. They want to be taught to fish and then go out and do things on their own, and they can add in their own custom fields. They can add in additional things to the data model. There's a whole data management section that's built into our portal, and we really focused this on usability. We didn't want to build yet another tool that's made specifically for IT teams. Those teams are already bottlenecked enough as it is typically. So business analysts, business users can go in, write their own reports with our tool, add additional tables and fields and things from Business Central, and then behind the scenes, we have a nice, easy to use interface for that. But behind the scenes, we convert all of that into the pipelines and things that need to be deployed out to Azure Data Factory. So we kind of
user centric kind of approach. That's awesome.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
No, that's great. So somebody can manage it themselves or work with their partner as well as you. Do you offer services as well with the application, or you primarily focus on allowing the partner channel to implement the application?
Well, yeah. So
I'm using the word application, but it's the suite of services that you may have.
Yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, we've done this a really long time. Obviously, in my past life that many folks in the channel know me from, I was in charge of all of our partnerships. And at the end of the day, when you're an ISV, our belief is you want to stay true to what your identity is, which is being a software company, right? What partners typically identify as is a services company, right? So for us, there's incentive there from a revenue standpoint for partners to implement It's what they're good at. Provide services for their customers. It's what they're good at. It's what they do. It lets them keep those sticky relationships with their clients because Cosmos gives them yet another reason to provide value and help the customer. And so we try and drive that through our partners. Now, some partners, as we know, you're moving a million miles an hour. You're converting customers to Business Central. People are busy, utilization's through the roof, and sometimes you don't have time. So, of course, we're there to support. We can deliver services. We do that on a regular basis. And we also have true service partners so that, if we're busy, we have partners that all they do is services. They're not ERP partners. They're just reporting and analytics partners, folks we've known from the channel that spun off their own businesses. And so we can always refer folks if the partner is comfortable with it to those resources as well. So we've got kind of that three-headed approach, but I would say, to be succinct, the first level is to have the partner conduct the service if they want those services.
I love that. So you're just focusing on building this application and continue to expand on it.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing too that I think is a big differentiator for us that the channel has really embraced, that our customers love, that the partners love, is that all of our training is free and readily available. You can not own Cosmos and you could go watch our training right now, right? It's on our website. And so the idea there being, we just want people to be successful with the tool. If they're successful and they love it, which has been the case thus far, then we'll get that word of mouth marketing that we're looking for, right? We'll get those referrals, those leads, the channel will talk about it. And so one of the things we never really understood from working with other products is that they charge for training. It's like you bring on a new hire, now you got to buy an $800 training class. That's not very convenient, right? Just point them to the website, let them go train. There's all the videos, there's an extensive knowledge base. They can learn and be successful. So that's, at the end of the day, what our goal is.
I really like and appreciate that approach because, it was the old days. I think it even started back with Navision. Yes, Brian, to go back to 1.0 when, those manuals that they had imprinted were like gold. Yep. Nobody could have them. You had to pay for them. You had to buy them. But I think as, the world has evolved, it's even within the ERP implementation of Business Central, you want happy customers because happy customers spread the word that it's a great application. I mean, there's enough businesses in the world that anybody who implements ERP, can benefit from Business Central users being happy. You have bad implementations or making it difficult for people to use a product, then they'll talk poorly about it, and there you go. So I think offering, making it visible, offering good services, giving people what they need to learn and be happy with a product is in fact something that's beneficial. Like you said, that gives you that word of mouth promotion that, hey, this is a great product. I can see what it does. And you're just the best at what you do is the way I look at it versus trying to protect it. And we're not letting anybody see this unless they get in and pay us for it. It's, hey, we're that good. We can support it, use it. You can see what we have and you'll want to use it. So on that website,
quick adoption is important. Right?
Really
it's
important.
Like you want to move on and start using the product and not have to figure out how do I use this, and it takes a lot longer and to implement and they get frustrated. So a quick adoption in what you guys are doing is amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's what everyone should be doing.
Yep.
So you have the online videos for this, for your application to instruct how to use it. Do you have other documents that they can download? Are there any other, report packs or anything else that somebody could download and utilize? Or is it more of an educational learning system?
So there was kind of a couple questions, and I'll speak to both. So one is, report packs. There's dozens of pre-built reports, and one unique thing about us from other tools that partners have really liked, and obviously customers like once they get on board, is that all of our pre-built reports work, period, out of the box. They're all designed in ways such that customer A can use them, customer B can use them, customer C, and they will work for every customer. We use things like account categories versus hard coding in accounts. And so most partners set up account categories anyways. So if they run a pre-built Cosmos financial statement, boom, their accounts are all listed out based on the category configuration, and the company filters are dynamic, things like that. And so with a lot of tools, they tout, look at all the great reports we have, but they're really more what we'd call sample reports than pre-built reports because they have to be modified or spun off or changed, whereas ours work out of the box. So there's that component. And then the other one that kills me to talk about because Brian's head is already big enough, but Brian spent, God knows, I mean, really, it hurts all the praise Brian get. I've known Brian a long time. There's a lot of praise he's showered with, and unfortunately, it's well deserved. But The most impressive thing he did early on when we released.
We'll mute Brian now.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Exactly. When we released this, he spent God knows how much time putting together well over 100 detailed knowledge base articles. And so those kind of supplement the training. So there's, training videos, ways to get up to speed, but you might be in the middle of a report and think, I need to add some grouping into this report. God, how do you do that again? And you can just go to the knowledge base, type in the word grouping, and boom, there's the training video, but there's also a knowledge base article. And when you click on that, it's got, screenshots with a write-up if that's how people prefer to learn. It's also got a video if that's how people prefer to learn, right? Because some people like reading the instructions and doing it. Other people like, having someone talk them through it. And so those flavors are there in well over 100 different articles. And so that's been a great supplemental resource, certainly for people that are getting hands-on, getting, down and dirty with the product. So,
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And to add on to that, the main reason for that, as Anthony mentioned, so I've spent years and years and years working with customers, training people how to use products and things like that. And it's funny because it seemed like half the folks that I'd talk to would say, you know what, just, I'd ask them, how do they learn best? Whatever you do, just send me text, send me a document. I want to read it. And the other half say, whatever you do, don't send me text, don't send me a document, just send me a video. And so we decided, even though to Anthony's point, it was a lot more effort up front, that we have 130 knowledge base articles now. Every single one has text and a video, how to do stuff. And we've gotten tremendous feedback from our customers and our partners because it's kind of something for everybody. So
I personally like that because I think it gives you the option to see and read, because sometimes when you read, you can't visualize. When you see it, you can play it, go back, pause it, because that's what I do with some of these videos is I'll play and pause and say, oh, that's the screen. Okay, now I understand. Whereas some, with the text, sometimes it's difficult to follow. Just to shift a little bit, and I not to shift at this moment, but I'll go back. So your pre-built reports that come with the application are built in such a way that it will satisfy. I just want to pick up on what you had said, that it will work with anybody, no matter how they implement the application or implement Business Central, because we all know there's many ways that somebody can do that. And then if they need to enhance them for some specific functions, they can do that as well.
Exactly. Yep. And one of the nice things about those is those are inside of the product. So it's not like you have to go download a zip file and unzip them and then load them, right? Like they're in the product. There's a gallery from within your tenant. You open the gallery, you click import on any report you want, and they snap into your tenant. Then you can set up, security and sharing and all that stuff. But it takes, our entire start to finish onboarding for a customer. In fact, Brian's going to be recording a video because our marketing team wants to show this off. Takes about 15 minutes on average from start.
Oh, wow. That's a quick turnaround. And with it being cloud-based, the customers, if you go with like the Business Central model, they have the rollouts twice a year and the updates once a month. What is the update process for your customers to make sure they have the most current version of Cosmos data? I'll call it a suite, and with their version of Business Central.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and talk to that. So from the product perspective, this is one of the beautiful things about everything being SaaS and being in the cloud is we actually opt to have a more frequent release cadence than the Microsoft team with Business Central. So we release improvements and new features bi-weekly, so twice a month.
Wow.
Yeah, and oftentimes, we also ship features once they're done. So we send out emails every 2 weeks saying there's one that's going to go out Monday saying, hey, here's all the new stuff that you have available. But once something's done, we'll actually push that out. People will, may see that before the email even goes out. We have all the documentation and everything dialed in already by the time we do that with our knowledge base. But the thing about it is there's nothing for people to install. There's nothing for someone to go in and push a button. Everything just gets pushed out, and we have the ability to, quickly, turn around any updates, features, anything like that people want to see or leverage. So,
wow, that's impressive. And to have a 15-minute onboarding process, I can, get up and go get a drink and come back, and everything will be done, which is great. Now to go to a quick shift. So this was your first summit that you had gone to as Cosmos Data, correct? I know you were down at Directions earlier in the year. What did you think of Summit? How did you like attending Summit? And if you can compare that to Directions from your point of view.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a comparison I've had. I mean, obviously have gone to many directions, many summits, right? And they're both unique in their own way and they're both great in their own way, but there's also the pros and cons between the two, right? I mean, I think directions is a little more formal, a little more about just the networking, hanging out, as always, Brad, having the drinks, right? That whole
I was
situation,
just
you knew
about
that
to
was
say it's
coming.
having a beer or a
Yes.
vodka, right? Brian, it's the vodka.
Exactly. So, directions is a little bit about that, hanging out. It was great to introduce our product there and get in front of the partners. And obviously, we had a packed house for our debut session. So that was great. But, Summit, it's more about, getting in front of the prospects, getting in front of your customers. We had that great mix of people coming by to figure out what we did. We had people coming by that owned the product that wanted to just gush. And it was always great when they're there at the same time. So we had one gentleman that we know very well who's a customer who's now moved to a different company, and he came up when we had like 3 prospects at the booth and was just gushing about how great Cosmos was. So that's kind of the fun stuff that Summit provides, right? Having the users there. But it was definitely a different Summit, I felt like, than some of the others I've had in years past. Not necessarily in a bad way, just different, right? Just a little bit different experience.
I think that's resonated by a lot of people, and I attribute that to, I think it's like the first big conference after everybody didn't really know how to act in public, as I'll call it. So I think it was a little unexpected for a lot of people. I think even from the conference holders, as Kris and I had spoken about a week or so ago. I think it just was a lot of people going, and it was just a little bit different than others. Now, with this, have you considered branching to maybe F&O? I always forget what to call it, F&O, AX, Exapta, you can call it whatever these days, but have you considered branching out now that you have an established Business Central application to branching over to other products in the Dynamics 365 suite, or just still going to focus on Business Central?
So it's interesting, right? Because we are starting to really get our footing in the Business Central space. And then, of course, there is that looming finance and operations or finance and supply chain, whatever it's called, like you said. But there is that looming market there. To be completely honest, we've sat down, obviously, and put a lot of thought into this. And I think one area we can't ignore, we always focus so much on here in the States, but it's the international interest. I mean, we have partners banging on our doors, and I'm not exaggerating. Okay, maybe a little bit, but figuratively banging on our doors to try and get this thing for sale in their markets. And being that it's cloud, you need to have those data centers around the globe, right, for lots of compliance and data concerns and things like that. And so, early next year, we'll be making a big international push. We've got one of the largest distributors of Microsoft software, in the world, very interested in kind of working closely together to start tackling the European markets and things like that. And so, for us, it's probably not F&O or F and supply chain, whatever it is. It's probably more focusing on that international expansion and still staying true to Business Central, at least for now.
No, so you're going to focus on what you have and what you know and do it well. It's again, so it's to focus on what your core is so you can provide better services. So I won't even ask about GP.
Yeah, so GP, we're going to have to look into that when we move towards the additional data sources and connectivity there. But in theory, there's a potential that GP should be able to kind of be solved in that, but we have to do testing around that. So we'll see kind of what comes out of that. But yeah, I mean, I think, Brian, GP is a fantastic product. We've got a ton of people that are, friends and family that are in that space. But at the end of the day, we're building aggressively alongside the direction Microsoft's going, because we felt that was the safest path to go. And as we all know, I mean, Microsoft's pushing hard, and a lot more development and resources into kind of the other 2 products we talked about. So
it's a lot easier to swim with the current than against, I found, just
Very
to let you know.
Yeah. Completely agree. And to kind of to wrap up the GP question as well, I mean, going back to what I'd mentioned before about us being able to connect to lots of different data sources here in the not too distant future, one of the most requested data sources that we've had from our customers and partners is, hey, I've got SQL databases sitting somewhere. Can we connect to those? So we know that we're going to support that. GP is a SQL-based product, so there will be some way, shape, or form for us to, of course, get the data out of GP and wrangle it all together.
So for those customers that are moving from GP to Business Central, when you build a report pack that allows them to analyze their Business Central data with GP historical data, remember where that came from, right? It came from here today. We came up with that idea, right?
Yep. No, that's definitely a play that we'll be touting highly. Obviously, it's just and you brought it up earlier, Brad, which was obviously a smart observation. But yeah, I mean, data migration, right? That's at the end of the day, what's behind the scenes with Cosmos is the capacity to have a data warehouse or a reporting database or a data mart. I know there's subtle differences between those, but you'll be able to consolidate data and again store historical information, as Brian said, for reporting purposes. So it should help partners that want to move folks from GP to Business Central accelerate that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned capacity. Are there any limitations to how much data a customer can have to analyze within this, or is it just as much as they want to pay for with it being cloud-based?
There aren't any limits. The way we built the product is actually, and I take zero credit for this because this is not my domain, and Brian, you can add some color to this. But the way we built the product is that everything kind of scales up and down and everything is streamlined as far as the costing that goes into it. And so we actually don't pass any Azure costs on to the customer. They pay a flat price and we eat all the Azure costs because we've built it in ways that we've been able to, kind of keep those costs down. And then also with some of the programs that Microsoft endorsed us and accepted us into, we do get some Azure credits from them, which help offset some of it as well. And as we continue to add customers, those credit amounts go up.
So then what I hear from that is that's another benefit, because with Business Central being cloud-based and them charging by the size, right, of the database, they could, in essence, I'll use the word loosely, offload some of the data to Cosmos for reporting and not incur any additional costs, because the amount of data that they have within your, suite is a fixed fee based upon however, they're licensed for that product. Yep. That's good. See, that's a good edge right there. I like that.
Yep.
And with the analytics, now you mentioned you have analytics packs available. What type of analytics do you have? Is it more of reporting, cubing type? If anyone thinks about the old SQL reporting cubes, I guess you can call it, or do you have any artificial intelligence or learning involved in some of these analytics that a customer can use with the application?
Yeah. So to talk about that, as far as the analytics side is concerned, one of the first benefits that we wanted to bring to the market with Cosmos was for customers to get really easy access to their Business Central data. And so one of the things that we do, not to get too much into the technical side of Business Central, but I know that, hey, this is the podcast for that, is over the years when I work with customers, oftentimes, you work with someone who's been in the nav and the Business Central space for a long time, and they're super familiar with where the data lives. They know exactly where to go. A lot of customers, and especially with Microsoft's push to get more and more organizations on Business Central and stood up quickly, right, using some of the the new tools they've been adding in to get users trained up. There's not a lot of training as far as where does the data live. And so when you go to actually report out of Business Central, customers don't know, well, oh, this is sales information or inventory. I have to go to the value entry table, costing, and this and that. So what we do is we take information, for example, with sales, Brad, from 16 different tables in Business Central and just consolidate it into one table called sales transactions. Anybody that wants sales data, it's in one table for the business users, right?
So you normalize the data to a sense where anybody can understand it, and even if the application moves the data around, which it does, you still can report on it from that one data source. What in the data source?
The data source being the table. Yep. So we have the ability, and all of our pre-built stuff that we've been talking about. This is all out of the box day one. But there's the sales transactions table. You want to report on sales? It's all right there. Right. Invoices, credit memos, return shipments, value entries, everything for sales is in one easy to understand place. And of course, that can be extended. We know how much customers, and partners, will add additional tables, fields, pertinent extensions, whatever it may be, to extend that particular customer's environment. All that stuff's available, so we can add it in as well. So that's that's where we really wanted to go as a part of the launch. Help customers get easy access to their data. But the great thing about it is, part of this launch with the Power BI integration is we built a full-blown API layer on top of the Cosmos data model. So you can go in and connect with Power BI, connect with Excel. Technically, you can connect with anything that can pull data via OData, right? Authenticates with their Microsoft account, their Azure Active Directory credentials, and get access to your Cosmos data that way for things like machine learning, whatever it may be, right?
No, it's a good way, I think, to leverage the application because you have pointed out several points with data migration. I'm stuck on that today. I have no idea why, but where you can have large data sets, they could leverage the reduced costs in essence because it's not based on volume, and then you can branch out and then use additional services while still reducing your costs in sense, right, or savings, because now you have an API layer available that they can do simplified reporting. I don't mean simplified in a derogatory manner. I mean simplified because that's what customers want. I mean, I tell everybody, if my mother can use it, that's the way to do it, right? You can make and build the space shuttle and do all these complex things, but if my mother can't use it and she calls and complains is miserable, then I have to listen to her. So you have to give her something that's very easy to use. So it's favorable. But then if somebody wants to expand upon it, you also make it available so they can add another layer if they want to branch off into other things. See, that's the piece that I missed for some reason in our conversations. But I like that. See, my head is spinning now on this, and I think that's it's a good feature to have. Is that part of the standard application, or is that an additional layer to it? So if somebody were to purchase or license Cosmos data, would they get the reporting and the analytics and then the API layer, or is it structured differently?
So when they purchase, we tried. Our plan is to keep the pricing as simple as humanly possible. Some of the other solutions we've sold in the space, I mean, their price sheets are like 3 pages long. There's 35 different inputs and levers for, and just trying to interpret that and work with the customer as far as, this is what you need.
You're not talking about Microsoft licensing.
No, never.
I mean, I think Microsoft licensing, any company needs 2 full-time people, even if you have 1 employee, to understand that licensing.
We could do a whole podcast on that. But as far as that's concerned, they with Cosmos, when someone onboards, they get the reporting, they get the analytics, all the data consolidation is part of the base package. If they want to use the API or connect Power BI up to it, like I mentioned, there's a small additional monthly fee for that, but the general, we went out and talked to a lot of partners and some of our customers before finalizing that pricing. And the answer was, that's it. And one person said, is that per person? We're like, no, that's actually just for the whole organization. They're like, okay, well, yeah, no, that's a no-brainer.
It's funny, Brad. I had someone tell me the other day, and I think it's like a hybrid between a compliment because I feel like the pricing's right, but also is sort of insulting because the guy said, how do you make any money? I'm just like, well, we're priced for volume, not to like maximize every single deal, right? We want to get adoption across the channel, but I thought like, no one's ever told me that before in any tool I've ever worked with. Like, that's it. How do you make any money? And that was a direct quote.
It's funny. It's strange because some people think that it's almost like wine. They think you have to pay $200 for a bottle of wine to have, a great bottle of wine, when I can go to the, grocery store and spend $15 and have the best bottle of wine there is, and it tastes better than other ones. But no, so I mean, I think having simple pricing is easy. And then also to your point, Anthony, for structuring for volume, the more users that use the application, then the better the application becomes, in my opinion, because now you have feedback, use, statistics, analytics from all these customers, and everybody can benefit from the enhancements that you release on your biweekly update schedule.
Yeah, and I think
I love the simplicity approach you guys are doing. I think it makes it really easy for quick adoption. I think that's really, really important. That needs to be driven, within the community.
No, that's what it is. I mean, there's so many complications out there, and keeping it simple is wonderful. Well,
I was going to say one thing too, Brian. I mean, people forget, I feel like at the ISV level, that like a lot of these partners are representing 25, 30, 50 ISVs, maybe more, right? And so if everyone's pricing is just super complex, I mean, think just take a step back on a lot of these decisions you make, when you're running a business. It's just, if yours is complicated, they're probably not going to want to sell yours because it's complicated. Right?
100%, man.
Want that, right? That Kris, we have to earmark that like market at this point, because it's that model, and it's people take the path of least resistance, right? So if you make something simple and easy, right? And easy doesn't mean not usable. Easy does not mean powerful. Easy means make it easy for someone to sell your solution. Make it easy for someone to use your solution. and for the most part, make it easy for someone to work with you, right? Then people will, go that route with your solution. So, no, I commend you for that. That's a great approach, I think, to widespread adoption of an application, because it's just easy.
Yep. Yeah. No, our philosophy has always been don't talk. If we're using the word we too much, we're probably doing it wrong, right? It's more about what do they want, what do the other people want, right? I mean, if you're building stuff, I used to always tell my old sales guys, like they'd be on a demo and they'd say, well, I really like this feature, and I'm like, you can present that so differently by just saying our customers really like this feature, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's not about what my salesperson likes. That doesn't move the needle, right? It's about what the person evaluating it as a partner, right?
No, that's insightful. I'm becoming almost speechless now. I almost want to flip this around and hear some other, Anthony and Brian strategies, because I think a lot of people could benefit from those.
I warned you. I warned you if you brought us on here.
Brad, one of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago that I wanted to comment on, you'd mentioned, if my mother can use it, then it's it's a good product. And so we have 2 QA engineers on staff, aka my kids, who are 10 and 7. And it's funny, as we were going through and building out a lot of the initial user interfaces, I mean, they're 10 and 7. They don't get reporting and analytics. But there were times where I'm like, okay, kids, look at this. If you were to go create a new report, how would you do it? If you were to go do this, if you wanted to go do something, like, how would you do it? And it was interesting just to watch them figure it out, and usually quickly. And if they struggled, I was like, okay, maybe this is maybe it's the audience of the person doing it that's a little tricky, but most of the time they could get it. I'm like, if my 7-year-old son can figure this out, like, we probably did a good job. Let's move on.
This is amazing. I love this. I'm going to play this. I listen to these podcasts over and over anyway, just for my own personal reasons, not to hear my voice or Chris's voice. It's just, we constantly want to improve. But you hit that right on the head, and I think it's important what you guys are saying is you focus on the customers and the usability of the application, and knowing your audience and knowing your target is one of the most important things where I think some people miss, is they want to be able to have these cool bells and whistles and all these great things that you can do, but it's complicated. So I think if you have something, a 7-year-old, my mother's not 7, but no, I think that's a good way to do it, because that does mean that it's simple, easy to use. And the other thing with it, it's not the easy to use, it's the easy to break. Yeah. Because if your mother or your 7-year-old can break this application, to Anthony's point he stated earlier, it just works, right? It works with, it just works with any implementation, how you do it. That's how you keep it from breaking with any implementation, is you throw a 7-year-old
exactly.
at it. I love the way you guys using the perspective of the user that will be using this product in the day-to-day versus how you guys use it, right? You may use it very differently than what most people use it. So I love that approach. It's really, really important that it's not for you.
Yeah.
it's for the users that are doing it.
And I mean, we've got our development, like people ask us, do you have a roadmap? And it's always awkward because, people are so conditioned by that. But like Brian and I hate roadmaps. Our CTO hates roadmaps. And the reason being is because we're building reactively, right? Like at this point, we've built the stuff we know people need and want from years and years of experience. But we, if we get a few prospects or a few customers in a row that say, God, I really need this feature, then we're just going to prioritize that. That'll be in the next release. That's how we build everything. So we have some major features we talked about, like data sources and international expansion and data center rollout. But then there's things like someone's like, we need this one feature. And then a couple days later, it's like, I love everything, but could it do this? And a lot of them are nice to haves, right? All the need to haves are there, but it's those nice to have features like, that just make things easier, but aren't necessary. And so we hear that a couple times. It's like, well, let's just talk to our CTO and get that built in the product. That's what we do. That's how we build everything.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, roadmaps are nice to give someone a general idea, but I think it's the usability of the application, and you don't want to be restricted by a roadmap.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, like you said, there's international rollout's a big thing. So yes, having a roadmap of wanting to do that by a certain target, but that's not a feature-based roadmap, where a lot of people, like you said, they're looking for feature-based. You're looking for more, architecture and structure type to, be able to scale out and support more customers, which is a little bit different. I like that approach because the roadmaps to me, Microsoft even puts out their roadmaps, and how many times do they hit it? Right? They say, we're going to add a feature. Okay, well, it's in there. Oh, we're taking it out. It didn't work. but we already told you it's going to be in there. So it can be, if you have generalizations or general ideas, it's great. But I think, in some cases, I think it can be restrictive and disappointing at the same time, right? So it's if you don't make that mark, so it's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and that's always been my take on roadmaps as well. I mean, and to be clear, like we have a really good idea of what we're going to be building, for the rest of the quarter, right? Then getting into the following quarter, we have a pretty good idea, but then it starts to get, depending on how things go for the next couple of months, we could reprioritize things, or everybody could ask for a certain thing, and we decide, hey, you know what? That's the most important thing for us to focus on. It's definitely not we wake up here every day and say, what should we build? What should we work on? But I do think that the further out you get, the less, just like any sort of planning, forecasting as well, right? The further out you get, the less, concrete that it's going to be. Yeah.
So you have ideas for the next couple of quarters. What is the next big thing that you're going to release that you haven't told anybody besides yourselves about? You can tell us right now.
That's tough. I mean, unfortunately, I think we spoiled it. I'll pretend you're the first to hear it, but it's definitely the
No, I can't do that. That hurts my feelings.
Right. It's going to be rolling out the additional data sources, but we do have one surprise feature that might be out in the next couple months. But I don't know that I can spoil it here. I think you'll have to have us back for the release. I think that's got that.
All right.
When is the release? But you have to tell us first.
Tell you first? Okay. We can make that.
No. Well, we'll have to do it you can tell us on the podcast, obviously. You don't have to tell me, outside of the podcast. I want people who listen to the podcast to know that they can get Anthony and Brian's release secrets.
Yes. So the release will first be announced on this podcast.
There you go.
Yes. That's what I want.
Love it.
Deal.
All right. Let's see. Now it's in the archives of this podcast forever that you made a deal. I was just going to
say, Brian, be careful. This is recording. Remember that.
I love it.
That's okay. We'll participate, and we can pre-record it and we'll release it at the same time, so you can do like a podcast and international announcement. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate both of you taking the time to speak with us today. I know your time is valuable. You're doing a lot of great things. If you would, though, can you take a few minutes to just tell everybody where they can find more information about the both of you, about Cosmos Data, and some of the other great things that you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having us. It was a blast. And, obviously we've known you guys a long time. It's fun to just catch up. At the start of this, right, you feel like it's an interview, or it's there's questions, right? Then it's like, I feel like we could have done this for another 3 hours. So I'm glad that your listeners aren't gonna suffer through.
No, we can't. That's the idea of it. It's some people ask, do you have any questions in this? And I say the same thing. It's just a conversation amongst people, right? Wherever it goes, it goes.
100%. But yeah, no, to answer your question, I mean, obviously our website, cosmosdatatech.com. Tons of information there. We plan on being at all the major events, next year and moving forward and continuing to, support those. So we'll be, sponsoring a lot of things. We've got a webinar on, I think it's November 16th, debuting our, Power BI release at 10 a.m. Pacific. So, that's floating around social media, LinkedIn. And then again, connect with us on LinkedIn, right? We're always happy to connect with people, and it seems like our connections in the channel just continue to balloon, with each passing week. So we love that.
All right, great. So everybody can head over to your website, LinkedIn, and find you on social media. And also, if they have additional questions, they can reach out to their partner as well, if they're a user of the application as well, which is great.
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you very much. We'll have to schedule the next, Brian committed, so we'll have to schedule the next, the next podcast date. We can schedule that up now if you want. After we get off, you can shoot me an email and tell me when that is, and we'll get that ready.
I got to call my lawyers, and then we'll send over some times.
Listen, you said you like things simple. Lawyers complicate things. I've learned. True. So you can just talk to us.
Perfect.
All right,
Sounds
guys.
good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Us,
talk to you soon.
Talk to you
soon. All right, bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE. dvlprlife.com, and you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, matalino.io. And my Twitter handle is matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.